Hello Year 10. In today's lesson, you are going to be looking at how the Great Depression affected different groups of people in Germany from 1929 until 1932. Before you complete the lesson, you need to complete the knowledge quiz using the Google form attached. Pause the video and complete that now. As you have seen, from 1924 onwards, foreign banks loaned huge amounts of money to Germany. Most of it was from America. The money meant that Germany could build factories and businesses, and this created more jobs, more money, and a better standard of living. However, in 1929, disaster struck. Within 3 years, over 6 million Germans would be out of work. So how did Germany go from boom to bust? And what impact did this have on ordinary German people? As you know, America had grown rich after the First World War by making goods such as cars and fridges and selling them all over the world. Some Americans even had money to spare and bought shares in companies and businesses in other parts of the world like Germany. However, in October 1929, what is now known as the Wall Street crash occurred. Many Americans hadn't made as much money and decided to sell the shares in their businesses very quickly. But share prices dropped as more and more people tried to sell their shares. Millions couldn't sell their shares for as much as they had paid for them. Some couldn't pay the bank back either and were ruined as debt collectors took their cars and homes. Soon, many Americans couldn't afford to buy any new goods at all, and as a result, businesses went out of business and millions lost their jobs. We need to think about how this led to problems in Germany. Americans didn't just buy goods that were made in America, they also bought items from Germany, Italy, Britain, and Japan. The Depression meant the Americans couldn't afford these things anymore, so foreign factories had to shut down. Goods made in the German factories, such as cars, electrical goods, and clothing, were not selling, so the factories had to close down and millions became jobless. To make matters worse, American banks demanded back all the money they had lent to Germany after the First World War. German banks tried to get this money back from German businesses, which couldn't pay, and so went bankrupt. People were living on the streets, hungry and full of resentment. The diagram I'm about to show you demonstrates how the Great Depression affected Germany. At the top, you can see that everything began with the Wall Street crash in October 1929. Shares on the New York Stock Exchange crashed in value and people no longer had any money. This had two impacts. First, it led to a lack of confidence. People were unwilling to invest in businesses and there was a decline in trade all over the world. Next, US banks started to recall their loans. It hit Germany really hard because German business were heavily dependent on American loans. The lack of confidence and the decline in trade led to demand for German goods to fall. And so begins a cycle of trouble that Germany struggled to get out of. As the demand for goods fell and America recalled their loans, German businesses went bankrupt, meaning they went out of business. This led to unemployment, as millions of people lost their jobs. As they lost their jobs, they were forced to live in poverty. Because they were living in poverty, they didn't have the money to buy German goods, and so demand fell again. And this led to more unemployment and more people living in poverty. Then we can see the circle starts to go round and round. This is what we call the Great Depression. Okay, now that you've had my brief introduction to the Great Depression, you need to read the section of the textbook that I've scanned in for you. Once you have read this, you need to complete the first table on the task document. All you need to do is enter a Y into whether you think each statement is true or false. You're entering a Y because it means that yes, you agree that it is either true or false, and I can clearly see in your answers what you think. Make sure that you read the information carefully and read the statements in the table carefully to make sure you can work out which ones are true and which ones are false. Pause the video and complete that task now. Okay, well done for working that out. Now that you have decided which statements are true and which statements are false, you need to rewrite the false statements to make them true. Look at the information in the false statements, decide which of the information is incorrect, and write the sentence again using the correct information from your reading. Pause the video and complete that task now. The next task is going to help you to prepare for the exam question at the end of the lesson. You need to think about the impact that the Great Depression had on different groups of people. For each group of people, you need to write 2 examples of the impact that depression had on this section of German society. I have written one example for you. So I have said, business owners were affected because many businesses closed as people couldn't afford to buy their products. Those that did not close experienced a fall in profit. Make sure you read the text carefully and are using specific, detailed factual knowledge to support each of your statements. Pause the video and complete that task now. Before you complete the exam question, I'm going to talk you through a few points about it to make sure you understand what you are meant to be doing. So let's look at this question. The command words the question starts with are in what ways. It's important that you notice that it says ways, a plural, so at least 2 and preferably 3 changes that happened are what you need to talk about. The next thing to notice is the conceptual focus. This is the aspect of historical skill it is asking you about. The historical concept is change. As in, what was life like during the Depression is not enough to get the higher level marks. You need to state what life was like before the Depression and then explain how this changed during the Depression. The next thing to notice is the content focus, and it focuses on the consequences on people following the Great Depression, as in what happened to them in the Depression, how did their lives change. Finally, it's worth 8 marks. So this indicates you should spend about 10 minutes on the question and write 2 or 3 fully developed paragraphs. And as we said before, a fully developed paragraph is about 6 to 8 sentences. You must make sure you organise your answer in a clear way. So for example, you could do one paragraph about the impact on farmers and another paragraph on the impact on businesses. Make sure you do not simply state that their lives got worse. You should explain why their lives got worse. Link it to the impact of the Depression upon their lives. Prove your point and give examples. For those of you that are trying to get the higher grades, you can think about more complexity. Think about whether everyone experienced the same consequences. Did the Depression affect everyone in the same way? You could also think about how fast did change occur. Was it life-changing? Was it immediate? Was it gradual? Be precise when the Depression had an impact on Germany and for how long it did have an impact. Don't give the impression the impact was immediate and lasted for a short amount of time. Well done for your attentive listening, Year 10. Now it's time for you to write your answer to the exam question. So go to the Google Doc and write your answer onto it. You will find that there are sentence starters available for you. Great work today, Year 10. Complete the exit quiz to check your knowledge and understanding from this lesson.